Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Jennifer Tanner, and I am here with Emmanuel. He is the owner of Fight Club here in Toronto. We're going to be talking specific about injuries today, and Manny is familiar
Yes, I am.
in his line of work with injuries. So he's going to tell us about a few that he has sustained and how we can prevent or rework our lives around them. So,
For sure.
yeah, Manny, tell us a story.
So there's tons. I'll give you a little bit of my career. So I've done martial arts most of my life, but I've also been a competitive athlete for a long time too. And injuries are normal. Like they're a normal byproduct of training. They happen usually accidentally, and they can also happen, I guess, deliberately if somebody wants. But generally, if we look at our life and we all sit back and look at the big picture, we realize that hospitals are full of accidents, things that have happened accidentally. And then when you look a little bit closer, you realize actually not that accidental. It's actually, it's like that person that says, trouble always finds me. And you're like, I don't know why. And you're like, let's look a little closer at your life. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, it's not that. You're bringing it on yourself. And what I hope people get out of this is that you can't stop injuries, but what you can do is pay attention to the signs before they get too bad. So they're natural with all sports. No matter how careful I am in martial arts, an elbow can go funny and hit me, or somebody can kick my leg in a funny way, and that can happen. But if you look at the bigger picture, you can avoid serious injuries, which is what we're really talking about. Like, listen to the signs and and not let them happen. And there are signs, without a doubt, especially for set sports. Like, you can talk to the chiros or doctors, and they'll tell you, football, these are the injuries. It's almost 80% bang on. Like when I played, I was a competitive rugby player. So when I talked to my doctor about the rugby, it was the top three were exactly what I saw. And of all the sports I ever did, the most injuries came from wrestling. So wrestling was, two guys going hard and grabbing and a lot of tension. And then there was a big movement, like a throw of some sort. And joints and those things don't do well when people lock and move.
Really?
They very bad. Yeah, horrific. Neck, usually back and knee, really bad. Like they were not kind of like mild sprains. They were complete breaks or really bad situations. So, but again, when you look back at the training, you look at different wrestling schools, you will see that some have a lot less injuries than others. And you realize, so there is a lot of work that is done by the trainer to get people ready for those situations that will lead to less injuries.
Yes,
So, and exactly, and that's the trick. And there's a couple of, like at the Fight Club, there's quite a few trainers that train with me that are trainers at high level sports teams. I'm not going to go into the details, but they're high level. Like we're talking NBA. NFL, high level stuff. And they will tell you, they'll see an injury on the field, any sport, and they'll say that's the trainer's fault. That's the athlete. They'll know. They can tell right away when certain injuries are that are should be taken care of by the strength and conditioning coach or the therapist. Certain injuries, right? So this is a big deal. And for those of you that are here in Toronto, that's one of the big reasons Kawhi Leonard came here. It's publicly known. Kawhi Leonard left San Antonio because the training staff butchered his assessment. He was playing injured, almost to a career injury. And when he found that out, he says, "I'm out of here." He goes, "You guys, you're not taking care of me. This is an injury that you should catch and fix, not have me play through." Yeah. Which is, and that idea of playthrough, this is where runners get into this thing. They say this, I have signs of pain in my knee or in my back or in my foot or in my ankle, and then I keep running. Yeah. And then and that's where you run into the problem. Rather than saying, let me do some research, let me go see somebody that knows this stuff. Like, I get it. There's a lot of bad mechanics, there's a lot of bad chiros, a lot of bad, but you find the good ones and you go see them and you listen to them. That's the most important. Whenever you do and sorry, not to, if you want to say something, sorry, I didn't mean to.
I was just going to say, runners are notorious for running through an injury.
Yeah.
And it's different between Leonard and us, is that most of us are doing it just because we love it, just because we want to get a little bit more exercise. We want to push our own little personal bests. It's not our career. And even him, it's his career, and he's not willing to push the limits that far where it's going to totally take him out of the game. But a lot of casual runners are willing to push those limits. So we really need to listen to those signs and reevaluate, why are you doing it? And is it worth running through? And maybe not running again. I did that myself. I ran and I hurt my ankle and I thought, it's not that big of a deal. I'll just keep going. And then it was a good year and a half before I could run again. So I learned my lesson.
So on that note, I don't want to bounce around, but there is some interesting. So today there was an article in the Atlantic newspaper about, pardon me, about Everest. Everest. So they're talking about the amount of people that have died this year on Everest, climbing Everest. And this was a senior mountaineer talked about it. And it was a beautiful article. It was in today's, so I'll give it to you. We can kind of reference it. It was something about how many killed or something. But his words were excellent. He goes, a lot of people get into wanting to climb Everest, but they're not mountaineers. They're just people that saying, this is my object. I want to climb Everest. And what they do is they train and they go through the physical preparation of climbing Everest. But there's certain things that you do in life that slowly teach you lessons. And mountaineering is one of them. And the big lesson that people don't get, and that's why so many people are dying, is because one of the lessons that slowly climbing different mountains, like small mountains, medium mountains, high mountains, steep mountains, all these different mountains, because there's certain people that love that stuff. They just love mountaineering. And it happens over a long period of time that you start to learn that the most important thing I need to figure out is when to stop, when to quit. And that doesn't mean quit running or quit mountaineering. It's when do we need to stop climbing right now? Because altitude sickness, it kills people coming down, not going up. Like they make it and then coming down, that's when everything happens, right? So it's so sad. But if you see some of the footage this year, there was a lineup on Everest. Can you imagine? Because I will lose. I will. Okay. If I'm in traffic in Toronto, I'm losing my junk. If I get up on Everest and I'm in a lineup, I'm gonna freak. Okay, you're gonna hear my yell. Okay, I'm done with lineups. I'm 50 years old, and I won't even. If I see two people at Loblaws, okay, I'm gonna leave my groceries. Okay, that's how much I hate line. If I'm on Everest and there's a conga line, I'm gonna lose it. I'm drawing the line. I'm done. I'm done. And he says it's just people that want that selfie, they want that shot of them climbing this. They're not true mountaineers, so they don't know when to quit. So here you got these guides that are like, you've paid a lot of money and they know that, and they're trying to tell you need to quit. And you don't realize, oh, I'm okay. You're not okay because you haven't been taught when to quit. So if I'm a scuba diver and I go down, down, down deep, coming up is the most dangerous part. That's when I get the bends, and that is a serious condition. And as you're swimming up to the surface, you're like, I'm okay. You're not okay. You're gonna blow up. You don't understand. The nitrogen has left your thing. You think you're okay till you get up there, and you're literally gonna be bent in half, and you need a chamber to get better. It's super dangerous. But nobody knows it because people don't dive for a long time. They don't climb for a long time to understand when to call it quit. So part of running, and the most important thing as you run for a period of time, is that you learn that I need to stop now. Because this pain is going to lead to an injury like your ankle. That's when you need to say, not quit running, I just stop today. It's just right now I need to stop. And it can be any time. I could be running and all of a sudden I get real bad pain in my side, like a stitch. Don't keep running through it. Something has just told you to stop that day. So the big part of assessing yourself is knowing that there's been good and bad pain, and knowing when to stop, because there's warning signs, because it's everything. There's warning signs about bad pain. It's out there. It doesn't matter if it's a cold. I know my warning signs for a cold. I can see them right away. Okay, I know my warning signs for my back. My back will act up. I used to lifted a lot of weights, and my low back will tweak once in a while. My warning signs of my back are my stomach.
Really?
My stomach, I'd say like bloated, because the nerve in that area goes directly aligned. I know it right away. It's immediate. I say, when my stomach feels bloated, I know that something's wrong with my back. So there's everybody has that. There's something that warns you just before that. And runners are synonymous with okay, a little bit more. But take care of your body, as it's the most important thing. Like all athletes that I met always go back and say, man, if I could go back, I would just be kinder to my body. I just felt I beat it up too much, and now being 50 and, my parents older, you see now that you want to make it to 70 and 80 and be happy and healthy. You don't want to have no knees left at 50. Your heart is also another one. Pay attention to the heart. You don't want to wear your heart out. You want to strengthen your heart. that's a little bit less. If you're just wearing it out, right? We get that with a car, but we don't get it with our bodies. Like, I want to take care of my car now because I want to have it in 10 years. I want to take care of my body. I want to strengthen it. I don't want to do things that hurt it.
Yeah.
And that's where that tipping point of like, love to run, but if there's any pain, it's probably due to form. In most cases, it's form. Like runner's form is not a right or wrong. Every body style has a different way of running, right? The way the foot impacts the ground, the way the body transfers over the foot. If you get that wrong, right? And footwear too. Like there's so many different types of shoes. Each one will have a drastic difference feeling on me. You see this all the time. So there's no right or wrong footwear. There's no right or wrong gait or pace. It's one that works for you. And you know the one because it'll feel good. It'll lead to less injuries. So this is where good coaches, watching good videos on running form, listening to guys that are like this podcasts and different things where there's lots of good information about injury prevention, or just talking to a good doctor that specializes in runners. Like there are a lot out there that a lot of runners I know go to doctors that actually specialize in it. Even chiros that specialize in it. There's yoga for runners. Like you can find because a lot of people like to run, but they don't want to actually do the care. And when you're talking about injuries, especially for something like tennis, swimming, running, what's repetitive, right? One of the most important things you do is make sure that on a weekly basis, you add something different that you do, because you get the repetitive use injuries. The body is doing the same thing over and over, and it's wearing out. So Wayne Gretzky used to say they played hockey in the winter and then baseball in the summer. And that was really important. And he was very concerned that hockey players were playing hockey all year round. And he goes, on the surface, it looks good. But what happens is we're getting young athletes that are very talented. And then when they hit the teenage years, when they're hitting those growth spurts and they're adding extra 50 pounds, because they're filling out as men from boys or girls to women, then their injuries are just multiplied because they're overuse injuries. They're not. So we're developing more amazing players, but they're getting injured more. So we're not really ahead of it. Like, that's why there's a limit. And it's really, I'm a big fan of making sure that you I won't say cross-train, but it can be seen as, a cross-train. Just do something else. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. For runners, swimming is awesome. Okay. It's totally different.
With low impact.
Low impact, you're still working the heart. When you look at the movement and the pounding of running and then the flipping of, it also relaxes the legs. So it's a different movement as well, right? Or it could be any class that will do something different than running, right? That's really important for the overall well-being of the athlete and staying away from injuries, right? So we don't want to be, I guess we could look at it like we can be on the injury prevention, so we can do things before an injury, or we have to do stuff after you have an injury. So which side do you want to be on, I guess, right?
Yeah, I would say it's a lot easier to treat and prevent an injury.
I agree.
Than it is to heal and deal with an injury, and the lifelong repercussions that sometimes come with those ones. They're hard to
I have one. So I have one. You're asking me about something I've had. So 25 years ago, I blew up my knee in a rugby game. And it was the ACL, MCL, PCL, 3 ligaments
you did
gone.
The trifecta of
the 3. One was left, and the cartilage as well was quite damaged. And after that, the doctors said, your sports career is probably done. It wasn't even close. I'm able to do quite a bit of sports, running being one of them. But I wish that didn't happen, without a doubt. Now that's isolated, but these injuries do happen in life. I mean, runners get knee injuries as well. Usually cartilage related. Usually the cartilage is worn, and you want to look at your running style and your gait and those kind of things. And you want to get to the point where when your knees feel sore, when they feel, that was the time to check out why. Now is the time to look before it's serious. And there's so many things you can do. So many things, from diet to massage to acupuncture to reflexology to you name it, that is out there. And some people think it's not part of training. I say, well, I'll tell you this. Most elite athletes get a massage a day. Okay, massage a day. Lance Armstrong, I met him over here at Canadian Tire just before he retired, and Canadian Tire was doing a promo with him. They did something they were doing, and he was there in person in Toronto. So I went to go see him speak, and somebody asked him, he just retired, And somebody had asked him and said, what is one thing you do now that you did when you were a competitive cycler that you do now that you're retired?
Yeah.
And he goes, massage. He didn't even hesitate. I have massage every day, Monday to Friday. He's retired now.
I'm still doing it.
He's still doing it.
Yeah.
How many of you runners out there are getting a massage a month? You're not.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. You think it's like an add-on, or these elite athletes cannot even exist without the massage a day. And you're trying to do this without it. And the big reason for the massage is it circulates toxins. It empties out the adrenals, like the adrenal system that takes away toxins. It gets locked up. And that's why we're not able to flush away the byproducts of waste that come from the body's exercise. So it just makes you feel good, and which is the mood thing. And then when you got a good mood, you're less injuries. I would say it is not kind of an add-on. It's essential. It's essential. And once a month would be a starting point. And then you'd have a ton you can do between that. Like every day I foam roller my body, right? I do all these things that are constantly little, like I'll stretch. I'll sit in a squat for a minute. And it sounds funny, but you know those deep squats where your feet are flat and your bums are, when you watch people from third world countries, that's how they sit when there's no chairs. How many of you sit that deep? Rare.
I think a lot of people can't.
Yes. And so about 2 years ago, I had a challenge at the Fight Club. I had met a surgeon, a surgeon that specializes in shoulders and knees in Toronto. And he said to me, before he operates on anybody, they come to him with bad knees and bad shoulders. He said, I will not operate on you until you do this for 30 days. They said, 30 days, 3 times a day for 30 seconds. This is this thing. So 30 days, 3 times a day for 30 seconds. I want you to hang. So what I mean, grab a bar or grab a door frame, hang with at least 50% of your weight or all your weight for 30 seconds. And he goes, that position will strengthen and stretch your shoulder joint, because a lot of it is that we're hunched over. And then he goes, then I want you to grab something like a door handle or a pole of some sort and squat as deep as you can. So and make sure your feet are flat, your knees are and your bum is low and you're straight. So in that squat position for 30 seconds, 3 times a day for 30 days. And he goes, if after that time you still want surgery, I'll do surgery on you.
Wow.
And he said the people that came back in surgery was 50%. It was like 52.
50%.
50%.
That's
it blew me away.
Imagine
so I had a challenge.
From a minute and a half of exercise.
1 minute, 3 minutes
a
a day, 3 lousy minutes a day. You can do that at the office. You can do it at home. Hang anything, a door frame. Some people have a chin-up bar or whatever they have at home. Just hang. Go into your basement. There's a support beam. Just hang on it. Let your weight, whatever. But you got to hang at least 50% of your weight, and you got to squat deep. And maybe you can't, but you're going to try, and you're going to keep trying.
3 times a day, you could probably go a little bit further.
His idea,
a little bit further.
His explanation to me was, when you bend the knee, you open the knee joint. And when you open the knee joint, you allow fluid and you allow scar tissue to start, because that's really what it is, that the joint is not being fully used. And that was the same for the shoulder. It was by hanging, you're opening the shoulder. And for anybody that's dislocated your shoulder, the therapy, the rehab is you bend over with a can and you let the weight of that can pull your shoulder out, and that's how you strengthen the shoulder after separation. This is not my opinion. This is fact. This is straight fact. I've separated my shoulder twice. I've seen other people. That's the rehab for it. It's bending over with light weight, and that weight pulls the shoulder, just like hanging. It pulls the shoulder, allows fluid to come in and heal the joint.
Well, the knee specifically, certain parts of it are not very well innervated with blood flow. So being able to open up that joint capsule and allow more blood flow to circulate in there, you're getting more oxygen, you're getting more nutrients, and you're allowing to draw out some of the inflammatory molecules that are in there.
And for those that don't believe, not to believe this, you believe this, but just to understand how big it is. There was an astronaut, Canadian astronaut, Hatfield.
Oh, yeah.
Hatfield, right? Hatfield. So when he was up in space, I was follow him a little bit. It's very interesting. And they did a lot of physical experiments. He was jogging, I think, or he was up 2 hours. He had 2 hours of physical activity a day. He would urinate and take blood work every day, and they monitor it. So within 2 weeks, guys, so look at this fact. Within 2 weeks, the calcium levels in his urine doubled and then tripled. So basically, they were trying to see if they could set off because there's no gravity. So the bones aren't necessary. Like we don't, their bones start to, they said, how can we stave off osteoporosis? Because the people are thinking about how we're going to live on the moon. That's the next thing people are trying to think about. Not me, but anyway, some people want to do that stuff. So you guys go fly. But just imagine. So in 2 to 3 weeks, the body found out, said, I don't need any bones. So it started to dissolve the bones at twice the rate. So if you think by not bending your knees for a month that your body is not learning that you don't have that movement, and that's why you can't do it, because you haven't been doing it. So you either use it or lose it kind of mentality. So if you don't bend, if you don't hang, then your shoulders are going to get tight, and then you don't have that movement. But when you get it back, that movement, all of a sudden the pain goes, this goes. And I'm not a doctor, you are, and you realize that surgery is avoid it, because there is no guarantee that it's not worse after that. People think that surgery and I'll be better. No. When you open up the body, you never know what happens. So many things can happen to the situation, good and bad. So I never take chances with surgery. It's only I have to have had 2 surgeries in my life. My knee was one of them, and I had to have that. There was no choice. And I see people having all the time, and they don't need to do it. And I'm like, wow. Because people think that there'll be surgery and it'll be magically fixed. It won't be magically fixed. The work will really start after the surgery.
Yeah, and I think people forget about the recovery from the surgery, and a lot of these pre-exercises that you could have been doing, you're going to be doing them post anyways with a physiotherapist, and it's a lot harder because you now have an incision, you now have a lot of pain, there's inflammation, and like, some people absolutely need to do it, but there are a lot of cases where we could avoid it with just something as simple as like this exercises.
Please, guys, look, just those are 2 basic ones, and there are many others out there. So whenever I take on an athletic endeavor, so if I'm going to run, I would research runners' injuries, common runners' injuries, and then you just make sure you don't have one of them. Just check. Like it's really simple. Like if ever, it's funny. Somebody called, was telling me something. He said his name, and as he was talking, I just went into Google. I typed in this name, and I realized scam. It just showed up. Like, just do your research. Like, it's really simple. When you're getting into when I'm buying a car, Honda this year, what are the problems? And reviews. And you read the reviews, you read the problems. Do the same for the hobbies that you do. And then already you know what the problems are, so you can avoid them before you even start. And that's the way I would look at it. And then if you do have a problem, it's not impossible. Be relentless with figuring out the solution. For years, people told me you won't be able to do this, and this. I was able to do everything, guys. It's so silly. Sometimes medical practitioners are using the average, because the average person won't put in the time necessary. They know that. So that's why they say you're not going to do it. But if you put in the time, there's nothing you can't do. Right? But you got to put in good time on yourself, right? And work through it. Like you were saying, you can put in the time before, you can put it in after. Put it in before.
Yeah.
So much easier.
You have to lose, right? Maybe you still need the surgery, but you'd be in a better place going into it, and you'd probably recover a lot faster. And maybe you don't need the surgery, and that's a big factor.
But the knees, knees and ankles for runners, and back too as well. I can almost always trace it back to a running form that they're doing wrong. So you really want to check out your form. You really want to make sure you're getting a massage a month. You really want to make sure that you're resting appropriately, hydrating appropriately. And then you want to listen to those pains and research them. Say, what does this pain mean? Some tight calves, sore feet, right? Things like that can be done simply through a little bit of a massage or stretch before or after the run, and might alleviate that completely. So their solutions are there.
Are there techniques that you incorporate into your martial arts classes that you're doing that specifically would be preventative for some of the injuries that you might see in your classes?
So there's two types of injuries you'll see. There's musculoskeletal, right, like muscles and bones and stuff. But you'll get an athlete that will sit there and say, I can see them, they can do the splits, and they say, I feel tight. Like, and it's not just for martial arts, it's for all athletic, and that'll be the key. So so there's fascial tension. So fascia for runners is huge. So so if you talk to a good massage therapist, they will tell you that 70%, and this is a modest, it's probably more, but 70% of tightness in the human being is fascial. And for those that don't know what fascia is, it's kind of like think of saran wrap. So if you look at my shirt, like if I do this, so underneath my skin, there's like a layer of fat, and it's just above the muscles and the bones. Like it just lies across. So if it looks like saran wrap. And ideally it should be smooth, right? But what happens is tension and tight muscles cause the fascia to do stuff like this. It gets all wrinkled. This is under you, and then you feel tight. Like if I do this with my shirt, it feels tight here. But when somebody goes in to massage it or stretch it out on the fascial level, all of a sudden my shirt feels comfortable. So I'm comfortable in my skin. Now, fascia is interesting. You can accomplish this. So if I hold a stretch, if I touch my toes for like, let's say 10 seconds, 20 seconds, that will be a muscular stretch. But when I actually hold it for like 30 seconds to 60 seconds, and my main goal is not to stretch the muscle, but relax into the position, then what you'll feel, it's a really interesting feeling. You'll feel, it'll be like this, and all of a sudden you'll feel like this. You'll feel like it's like a tectonic plate that just shifts. And you're like, so I'm touching my toes, and all of a sudden I'm holding it for 10 seconds. I can't go any further. And then I change my head and I say, it becomes a stretch when I relax. Until then, I'm tensing. So if I'm trying to stretch, I'm not stretching. It becomes a stretch when I relax. So when I relax, all of a sudden it feels like two plates have just shifted. It just move into it. And the feeling is like, you're here and you're like, I'm going nowhere, going, all of a sudden, boom. And I just sink. And I'm like, now I've hit the fascia. That's fascial. The fascial now starts to go, here's my muscle, here's my fascia. It's stuck. And all of a sudden, it just slides. And I'm like, well, there it is. And it's usually about an inch or two. It's not a huge amount, but it's noticeable. So it's holding stretches just a little bit longer. And some people will use foam roller. Some people will use a lacrosse ball, like a hard ball, like something, or baseball, but a lacrosse ball is a little bit better. And they'll put it on that spot that's tight, the cap, and they roll it, and that will start to get into the fascia and isolate a little bit more. So it gets into those nooks and crannies. And I do this in front of the TV, like I put on the news for a half hour and I roll myself out. It's not, it's enjoyable. And then I know, because when I get up and I walk, I just feel like it just feels like it fits better. Like I feel good in my skin. I don't feel tight.
How long does that take you?
I honestly, I don't even call it a time, because I do it while I'm watching like the news or something.
So
like
it
I do
take
it
any extra time
no
out
extra
of your
time
day,
at all.
combining it into something else.
Yeah.
I think a lot of runners don't even stretch at all. Never mind, in your opinion, stretch long enough, right? If you're just doing that quick, like bending your calves out, your hammies or your quads there, then they're holding it for maybe 10 seconds. So to get it into that long
and
stretch.
if you're really not the person to stretch, if you're not that type, then go take, there's tons of like yoga or places all over Toronto where they specialize for runners or for non-athletes, and just go there and they'll show you. Like they'll learn someone for 5 minutes. What's the big deal? What do you have to lose? So I don't know everything. Or you get on YouTube and just type in stretching for runners, and they'll show you. And a lot of them think that it's not a big deal, but it is really a big deal for you to stretch. It's not an add-on. It's not an extra. You will see a noticeable improvement to your running. You'll get faster. You'll heal better. You'll recover better. A little power outage. There we go. This is important. So if you can incorporate, so if you don't know how to do it, that's fine. Not everybody knows how to do everything. So just research it on YouTube. It's really good. Or I'm a big fan of the classes. Like, it's nice to just be together with people. We're social animals. Find a good place local to you. Go on a Sunday, some day that's like an off day for you, once a week. And it won't solve your problem. Nothing, you solve your problem. That won't solve, it'll just show you the way. They'll just show you the way to do it. And I just find it enjoyable. I mean, a lot of people don't understand how many high-level athletes do stuff like yoga or do stuff like mindfulness or meditation.
Balancing that yin and yang, the busyness of their life and their, I mean, athletics is great, but it's also very yang. And then
you balance
more of that common. With the stretching, do you prefer before or after?
Usually, so for me, I found that my muscles stretch the best when they're a little bit warm. So I will, so if I'm going to go for a run, what I do is I roll out my joints. So I'll roll my shoulder or roll out my knees or my ankles. And just what you do is, what people don't understand what warm up is. A warm up is very important. Warm up is a transfer of blood because when you're not doing anything, 70% stays in the core. Like, this is where your lungs, your heart, this is where everything is happening. Your arms and legs are not necessary. So there's the minimum amount of blood is left here. But when you start to do an activity, you need to transfer blood from here to the arms and legs. So I would highly recommend that before you run, there's a good 5 to 8 or 10 minute hard walk, like a faster walk. And then you can start to run. So what it does is it gives the body a chance to transfer blood from here to the arms and legs. And then the same when you finish. When you finish your run, there should be a good 5 to 10 minute hard walk and a cool down. And that transfers blood back into the body. So this is why when you watch a hockey game and it's just finished, the athletes are coming off the ice, the hockey players going into the dressing room, and they're hopping on bikes. And they're on a bike because if they just stop, lactic acid, which is the byproduct of exercise, so that, here I am using my arms, using my legs, there's all this byproduct left, and I just stop. And all this blood comes rushing back into because I've just stopped. It comes rushing back into my chest and into my stomach, and it's leaving the lactic acid behind. And my next day, you'll see your leg, you wouldn't be able to get up. So those athletes that do this are the ones that just stop. I mean, have you guys ever wondered why they're doing an interview and the guy's on his bike? Like, you just came from a hockey. Why are you on a bike? He's on a bike at a very low level, so it's very light, but he's transferring the blood smoothly back into his body, making sure that the lactic acid is not left in the arms and legs, which sucks. So a lot of times, a lot of athletes, warm up, big deal, I'm good. I used to laugh at some of my friends that would just crack their neck and they would go play football. When you're young, that's stupid things to do. We grow up and now we know better things to do, right? So just it's pleasant. Just go for a hard walk and then go into the run. So I roll my joints out. So I make them, I roll the ankles out, and then I go for that hard walk, get my heart rate up, get blood transferred, and I start to run. And then after I come back, I bring it back down, and then I stretch. And I like to stretch then because the muscles are warmed up. They're being used, and now I find I can go deeper into the stretch. When I stretch beforehand, I find that some muscles are more elastic than others. It's like I'm out of proportion. I don't know how to explain it, but you wanna roll the joints out more beginning and then stretch a little bit more after. When
you say roll, like you're like
rotate around it. No. I meant like the that's what most of our injuries happen. It's in the joints, and joints are like the shoulder joints, unstable, the knee, the back. When you start to move them, you start to feel them because there is movement in the joints, right? People don't realize the hips are like the shoulders. So everything I can do with my shoulders, I can do with my hips. But you never thought about it. You can do that. The knees, look at what you can do with your elbow. You can do the same with your knee. But how many people ever thought of that? Never thought of it. Your fingers, look at your fingers. And those people without arms, they can do everything with their hands. With their feet, they can do everything. Type, brush their hair, brush their teeth. You're like, wow, but you never tried. That's why. So not that you have to do that, but I'm just saying you have a lot of ability in your body if you try. So and flexibility as well, if you try. So I would highly advise stretching after. You can stretch before, but not as much. Do more a little after. They'll be warm. They'll be more warmed up, and you'll find you'll have a more consistent stretch too. Yeah.
Right. So some great tips today. So big one to recap, listen to those signs. Feeling like pain, feeling anything like that, it's normal that a lot of us feel it, but it's not normal. It's a sign. That's your body's way of saying, hey, something's wrong. There's a book called When the Body Says No, and it's paying attention to some of those symptoms that your body's kind of like, okay, hello, listen to me. I'm struggling a little bit here. So listen to those signs, know when to stop, know the good pain. Like, like working out, you are going to be a little bit sore in some cases, but versus that bad pain, and maybe is it happening more often? Is it in the joints? The joints should not be hurting. The muscles, they might get a little sore from certain workouts. Doing a little bit of cross training like swimming, switching it up so you don't get that repetitive use injury from running. It's an impact sport. It does create a lot of inflammation and things ricochet up your body there. So bringing it back so you're avoiding some of those overuse injuries. Looking at your form, if you don't know how somebody tape you, or ask somebody, get a coach or join a group, and then you could look at other people and they can look at you and say, hey, you know what, you're running a little bit forward, you're a little bit back, your step is a little bit off, and getting some footwear that fits you, not the ones that fit your friend, but the ones that fit you, and keeping rest and hydration in that picture. Finding those resources. So like the diet, the massage, working with those qualified practitioners that are going to look at your joint structure, look at your ability to remove that lactic acid buildup, look at your signs and symptoms. Like, do you have a lot of inflammatory load in your system because of X, Y, and Z? We need to address that now before you get hurt, not after you get hurt. Yeah. And if you're not finding the solutions, just keep asking. Ask until you find that practitioner that knows. And then a great one, open up those joints. So hanging and squat,
30 second squats, 30-day challenge.
30-day challenge. That's everybody's homework. You're going to go home. I want you to do that 30-day challenge 3 times a day, 30 seconds per activity. Hang for 30 seconds, squat for 30 seconds.
That alone, guys, that one alone, I tell you, 3 students just they told me straight out it changed their life straight.
Amazing.
Absolutely. They're all in their 40s. They were athletes, high level executives playing really competitive sports. And I said, Manny, this changed my life. The quality of my life from this day when you did that. And I said, it's this simple. I'm going to try it. And it changed your life. That alone, and that's what's so simple.
Changed their life.
Change your life.
Surgery. 50%. These are huge numbers, guys, and it does not have to be hard. We like to make things more difficult than they need to be, but really a minute or 3 minutes a day. And then so when you're actually getting out there and running, roll things out from your fingers to your toes all the way through, and then do your longer stretch up to 60 seconds after the run. Yeah. So Manny again, he's the owner of Fight Club, so you guys can go to, is it fightclub.com?
Fight-club.ca.
Fight-club.
It's like a telephone-.ca, but if you type in Toronto Fight Club, you'll find it.
And if you like what you heard today, he's got some great podcasts on there as well. We'll have a link to those. So we'll see everybody later.